Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Keep saying there isn't any more kitchen time and then promptly coming up with another one. This video really follows on from yesterday's viewers' orchid question time, where there was quite a long chat about mounts and things, where I got all the stuff out, and partway through that I decided definitely to mount an orchid. So I thought it seemed silly putting it all away. So literally I finished that video off, which is currently processing on the computer, and decided to come out in the kitchen and do the mounts. Well, mount or mounts, I haven't made up my mind about two yet, but one definitely. So this is, this will get posted tomorrow, and this morning I got a bit stressed. I got a spur of the moment thing, basically because an ad popped up while I was doing something on the computer and just sparked off a thought, and I got straight onto eBay and started looking at gaming laptops, because as we all know, my laptop is as good as it's ever going to be, and it's still not to my liking to do a live broadcast with. It's probably fine for everything else I'd ever likely to do with it, but I'd like to do more live broadcasts. So I thought, right, well, let's have a look at a decent gaming laptop. It ended up costing nearly as much as my car. Not that my car costs much. I don't spend a lot of money on vehicles. And I bought a gaming laptop which has got a serious graphics card in it, so it should not struggle with trying to stream the sort of video that comes off of this camera. If you think of the amount of quality and things going on in some of the games that the kids play on the computers, well, and some of the grown-ups, come to think of it, the amount of data that's being processed, well, it's got a graphics card that can do that easily. So that should arrive early next week, so I'm hoping that next week's viewers' orchid question time will be live. So this is like a warning shot. It'll be on Thursday, it'll be in the afternoon sometime. I'm not going to put a time on it yet. If I make my mind up, definitely, if the thing arrives in time and I can configure it and try it, obviously, then I'll do it. But next Thursday's orchid question time may well be live to try out the new kit, my new toy. So that's that out of the way. But spending that amount of money in one go does, I wouldn't say it's stressful, but concerning, I think is a better word. Right, so this was the little Bulbophyllum, species unknown, that we decided to mount. I'm just going to have to cut off, I'll be back in a second. Sorry, I just realised I've got nothing to put my mess in, that'll be all over the floor. So I normally use this for my media, but because I'm doing mounts I don't need it for that. But what I do need it for is to get the stuff out of the pot. So just a gentle bit of squeezing going on here to loosen the media, and any roots should automatically detach now. I don't suppose we're going to have a giant root system on here, but what we have got is a root system, so I'm quite pleased. That smells quite mushroomy. I don't know how long this has been in the pot. The chances are this could have been due for a repot this spring anyway. I don't know. I mean, I can check. I'll put a pop up when this was actually potted last. But it does smell a little bit whiffy. Not bad, just damp cellar type smell. Not sour, not gone off. So all these marvellous descriptions of the different state media can smell. Well, after many years of playing about with it, there are distinct smells, some of which are acceptable and, you know, okay, not too bad, and others that have just gone too far and should have been done months ago. Those are the categories we try and avoid nowadays. It's been in the pot far too long sort of category. Now this one, I'm not going to try and take all of these bits of media off, there's just no point. And I'm not going to trim any roots, whatever's on there is going to stay. What I'm looking at now is how can I rearrange this plant to take up the least amount of space possible. And I think it's just a matter of pushing it together like that. Yeah, now most of the new growths are around the outside now, which is where the new roots are. And I should be able to strap that on that mount quite nicely. So that now doesn't need a large mount, which was what I was hoping. So I'll plonk that in my moss for a minute. Right, so that, I think that can go on that one. I've just grabbed all of these mounts. I'm not using this type of wood. That is in fact cork bark, that one. And that's quite an unusual shape. Must have been a branch growing out of there because it's got like a shelf on it. And another one down here. I'll have a think. But one of those two, these two are not to be used, those were just to be shown. So would it sit on there quite nicely? It would actually sit on that one quite nicely. And that little shelf at the bottom looks quite natural. The roots will tuck in behind that and then come up over the top as it extends. Yep. And the reason I've done that is because that's been used before quite heavily. You can see still some of the roots attached, and it won't get used for much else if I don't do it now. It's firm, it's not rotten or anything, but it has been used before, hence the algae. So that now needs sterilising. So I'll put that in the sink, ready to go. And quite honestly, I'm going to get on and do this one. It's on my mind. If I don't do it now, I'll only keep thinking about it. So I just will get on and do it. I don't know what root system I'm going to get with this. We shall find out. What's in my pot? And what's in my pot is old roots. And at the moment only old roots. Don't see any active growing roots here. I see older roots, but they're not dead roots. These are not dead, they're plump. They're just not actively growing at the moment. And I don't think this has been long in this pot, quite honestly. Again, I'll do a pop up when this was potted up. I haven't had this plant long, so it can't have been in the pot too long. So a lot of this is older, tireder roots in the centre here. They don't matter, not on a mount. It's gonna get flattened on the mount like that. Yeah? And the newer roots are going to be the ones around the outside. They'll be the ones that get pressed onto the mount and get some moss on them. Yeah? Now they won't attach to the mount, but the next lot will. And if these branch, the branches will. So, yeah. So no new growing roots on this one, so I'm taking a little bit of a risk. I've got no new roots, no new growths. Now under normal circumstances, if I was repotting this, I'd have waited. Yeah? But we'll see. We'll see whether it makes a huge amount of difference to this plant. We'll use this as a little experiment. I know that if I repotted this again in a pot, it probably would stall. From past experience, I would suspect it would stall. So we'll see what it does mounted and see if it actually kicks it off, which it often does from my past experience. They tend to get going quite well. This seems to be that they know the difference between a pot and a mount. And a mount is quite honestly just more natural. It's as simple as that. It's going back to how it would normally grow, or as close as we can get to how it would normally grow. Just getting the old sheaths out at the moment. That also gives me a chance to check and see if I've got any scale lurking on this one. This one apparently is bug free. Yep, not a light, which is good. Good. Right, so that's 2 to mount. I'll get rid of the rubbish and sterilise the actual mounts because they're both getting reused. So they're old ones coming back into use, and I'll be back. Okay, we'll get the Oncidium done first. Now, choices. That way. Hang on, let's point it towards the camera. That way, that way, that way, that way. Choice of 4. Now if you look at the plant, there's more that way than there is that way. So it's longer. looking at it from there. This distance across the plant is greater than that. That distance is greater than that. So it's going to lend itself to going lengthways. Now there are good possibilities of new growths coming out in this area and in this area. Unlikely there, possibly there. So if I mount that lengthways on there, it's highly likely the new growths are going to come out top and bottom, and they will naturally form a curve, which means next time round they might start creeping up the side. So I'm going to do it that way, I think, like that. Yeah, you can't, I could do it like that and actually hold it upright against the mount, which looks quite nice initially, but doesn't look quite so good if the new growths come out round the back because they're all squashed up. Yeah, and new growths that will come out in this area are highly likely to end up with aerial roots. So it's better if it goes flat on the mount. Then wherever the new roots come out, they're as close to the mount as they can get. Right, let's get some tying on stuff. Now, I'm probably going to have to go round a few times, and in one direction this mount is quite big. I'm going to take off a fair bit. Just my luck if it runs out. So be it. We'll see what we can do. See, I don't hesitate to tie on the mount first nowadays. I used to not do it like this. I used to try and get the plant where I wanted it and try and balance some moss on it and then try and put a loop round and knock it all off. Whereas nowadays I just tend to go straight in and let's get the plant fixed first and then we'll worry about the moss. So that's my slip knot, pulled reasonably tight with the knot roughly in the middle because I'm going to need that in a minute. Like that. Right, and I will get the plant. Yeah, I quite like the look of that lengthways. So I'm going to spread the roots out with my fingers before I plonk it on the mount. And because I'm reasonably confident that new growths could come out anywhere around the outside, I'm trying to get it central so that it's got as much room as possible to expand before it hits the side of the mount. Somewhere like that. Now I need to find a place for the tie to go round that's not going to garrot the plant and separate it into pieces, which is about there. There's a nice little path through the middle there that doesn't go over the top of any leaves or cut any pseudo bulbs. It should just tuck in through there quite nicely. It says bending a leaf straight away. So about like that. Yep. That's going to hold it firm enough, and I'm actually going to tie it. I don't normally do this, but I'm actually going to put a knot in there so that I can let go with both hands, which I don't normally do. This is going to be impossible. Nice idea, but to do a knot I need to find the other end, which is a million miles away, just so that I can go through that V and then pull it. And once I've got it pulled, then I can tie the knot and I can let go with both hands and deal with the plant, which seems like a good idea this time round. So we'll just put a knot in there, hold that tight while I fiddle and faff. Nothing like a good fiddle and faff. Right, now we can turn this over and forget about the tie for a minute or two. It's got the plant firm enough for what I want. We'll have a glug. Oh, spicy. Nice Shiraz. Right, and this time it's all going to be live moss, and it's all going to come out of my new moss. And I'm going to deliberately select some of the stuff that's fluffy, as I called it when we got the new moss. See if it will grow, because it looks smashing. Let's see if I can get it near the camera. this stuff. It's really attractive. Whoops, pouring water all over the place now. This is normal moss, but this fluffy stuff is attractive. Water everywhere now. Ugh, never mind, it'll all clean up in a minute when I can be bothered. Gradually get the rubbish out as I go. Right, where's some more of that fluffy stuff? A couple of pieces that have got this fluffy stuff mixed in with them. Let's see if it'll grow. Right, that's enough round the base of the plant. What we haven't done is have a look up round here, up round the top. We still do need some up round there. There weren't as many roots in that area, but there were some. And I still need some moss up there for the plant to grow, for the roots to grow into, and the new growths to come out into, should they choose to head up in that direction. Right, so we've got some all around now. We've got some down in the middle. We don't want that. Right, now from past experience, I know that these roots are going to head off. Once they start, they're going to head off. So I'm actually going to put some extra moss, even though there's no roots in those areas, because there will be. And that way the moss will already be established. So I'm heading off a bit further away from the plant than I would normally do. And let's hope the moss will attach and start to grow. With any luck. Right, dry hands. Now we start wrapping for real. And I don't mean talking all that nonsense. Not that sort of wrapping. That sort of wrapping has got a letter missing off the front. Work it out for yourself. It's not what I call music, or even close for that matter. Hence the extra letter on the front, to get it into an appropriate category that I can account for. Can't be doing with that sort of stuff. There's no musicianship there. Maybe a bit of poetry, which I'm not really into, but there's no musicianship. They've even forgotten the flipping tune, if there ever was one. Doing all those session musicians and all those good people who could have spent years practicing and learning to play out of a job, because there's nothing left for them to do. Right, is that enough? Have we got everything secured? Yep, I think that's good enough. Do I need to go around once more? I think I will actually. I think I'm going to do a diagonal right down across that bit of moss. And then we'll come back up from there. I don't normally go that way round, but... oh look, that was a good guess. So now I've already tied a knot. I've lost my V that I normally use. See if I can find it again. Somewhere there. I've got enough hands here. Oh, I'm going to have to grab hold of that with a pair of scissors. So I can't get it with my fingers. Come on. I've got wet hands now. Oh, there we are. Managed to stick it up in the air. Gotcha. Right. Get that tied off. Messing with fishing line when you've got wet hands is just not a good idea. Right. And just for Michael, specially for Michael, one tack to be tied on accordingly. And in this case, it's justified, because this looks like a lot of the other twinkly type things that I've already got mounted. So that when I'm saying things like, oh, it's alright, I won't forget what it is, I might in this case. In fact, it's highly likely, because it looks just like the other twinkles, even though the mount is slightly different shape. But those sort of memories fade very quickly, so I would forget what this is. So we'll get a label on, get it tagged, and it's done, isn't it? We won't be tagging the other little one simply because we don't know what it is. Well, in fact, it's a Bulbophyllum. It doesn't need a tag to tell me that. Right, there we go then. Live moss, and only live moss. Roots underneath. So any branching that now takes place or any new root activity is under the moss straight onto the mount. And as soon as those roots start attaching, that plant will take off faster than it would do without them. It's just, I don't know, it's something to do with the plant knows it's safe, I think. Once the roots start attaching, there's some sort of trigger mechanism that says it's now safe to grow because I'm not going to fall down onto the forest floor and die or get eaten by something. Right, where's my other one? Let's get this one done then. Same again, if I put the moss underneath, I'll be stuck with it. And what I'm trying to do here is arrange the plant in such a way that the new growths are dotted around, not all in one place, as are the roots. Something like that. I'd rather it was longer and thinner again, same as the last one. So I think I'm actually going to plant that like that, up the mount, so that it's, if it does extend sideways, it's got somewhere to go. Yep, something like that. Alright, so that's going to be fiddly because of the gaps in the rhizomes. There's nothing to grab hold of. But then it's a small mount, so we should be okay at getting it to stay. You brought the pliers out here for something. Right, lots and lots again, because I know I'm going to have to go round in quite a few places. Simply because there's gaps in the rhizome. It's not like tying the whole plant on, if you see what I mean. It's like tying bits of plants. It's almost as though they're not even joined together, even though they are, because they'll all flop around all over the place. So whereas that other one wasn't really a faff and a fiddle, I think this one will be. Highly likely to be anyway. You know, this is an older piece of bark. This has got a softer feel to it. Not rotten, but it's an older piece. It's been around longer. So it's not rock hard on the surface. It's got a softer feel to it. But a long way from actually rotting, I hope. That are my theory. Right, now, quite like that, with that extension heading up to the top of the mount. This is not going to be easy. I think I might end up having to tie the plant on before I even think about doing the moss. So I think we might end up having to go round several times before we go to the moss and then do the moss afterwards. So I've gone round in between a piece that I actually want to squash up together like that. Right, now can I get hold of it somehow? Very, very difficult Bulbophyllums to mount because of the rhizomes. They just, everywhere you try and put your loop round, you're cutting a rhizome or catching a leaf, or just, you know, they're not easy. Especially when you've got a great long piece of fishing line dangling all over the place. Right, so now that top piece, I will actually pull that back down and bend it, because it won't break, he says. Now, actually you can extend over the top and blow it. Right. Well, this time I don't need to tie it off, it's firm enough, and I don't have enough area to worry about with the moss, so I can just hold that with my hand, with my fingers. I've got my long end looped around there in a loop so that I can hold that and use my other hand to do the moss. That's my theory, what I have. Right, so I have a nice big piece there. Piece up over the top there, like that. That's for that little extension there with its new roots. that little piece of moss is just for that one little piece up there. Now we need to come round the side here. Get some round there. Some down the bottom. Like that, onto that shelfy sort of thing. And then, where's that? There's a piece with that, a little piece with the fluffy stuff in, which I'm going to put in there. And now I'm going to do something I don't normally do, but for this one I will. I'm actually going to put some moss right in the middle, on top of the rhizomes, loosely, like that. With some fluffy moss. See, this is getting a bit silly now because I'm rather than using the moss for growing the roots in, I'm using the moss as more like artistic decoration. I'm trying to make it look pretty as a mount, whereas normally all I would be interested in is the plant. So be it. Right, now looks like we've got enough loops here. This loops to hold the moss. Don't need to go over any rhizomes. Now we do. Just to hold the moss, I've got to go over the top of the plant, twisting, trying to find gaps all the time, so that I pull on the rhizome, not on the leaves, not on the pseudobulbs, just on the bits in between that hold the plant together effectively. Caught around my wrist. Now I'm going to have to go over the top of that one. Yep, over the top, around that big piece of moss. Then we come up over the top here, about there somewhere. And I've got just about enough to go round for that nice extension up the top to hold the moss and the extension. Right, let's see if we've got any loose floppy bits. Nope, nope, nope. Yes, but that's got new roots coming out. And that little bit there as well. I can't, that bulb there has got two new growths, yeah, both of which are producing new roots. That's what's going to make that bit secure. If I put a piece of fishing line around those new growths, it's going to cut them. So they're going to have to support themselves, they're going to have to get hold, so I'm going to make them earn their keep. Right, so that's tied off. Oh, we are having a faff with our tying our ends off today. Well, the day, believe it or not, I missed. So I missed my V. I wonder why it wasn't grabbing hold of anything. The day is nearly over. It looks quite bright, the light in here at the moment. The sun is setting, and as it sets it comes straight in this kitchen window, but there's not a lot of light left today now. We've probably got another half an hour and that sun will be gone. You know, time's ticking by, but we've got much longer days now. I'm happy with this extra light, and it makes working in the kitchen at this time of day quite pleasant. And it's actually quite warm. The sun is quite warm through the glass, so watch your orchids. There we go then, that's that one. New growth here, two new growths here, and one here and one here. So there's new growths in quite a few places there, and there's a weed. We don't want that. So we'll see how that one does. So, yeah. So there we go. Where did I put the other one? There's the other one. So quite different mounts here with different logic. A solid plant, yeah, that's going to grow mainly around the edges. I doubt if much will come up in the middle of that plant. And it was quite easy to secure it because it's a single plant. It's like a single entity because all those bulbs are tightly joined together. So, you know, you could pick it up by one leaf and it would stay the same shape. Whereas this one you couldn't. If you pick this one up by one leaf, you know, every leaf you hold it by, it's going to change its shape because it's all like separate pieces, loosely joined together. So quite a different sort of feel to them. Anyway, that's those two done. I've got to go and find some more hanging space, haven't I? And clear up all this water that came out the bottom of my moss tray. All good fun. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.